So hey guys, I'm Vasu Jain. I'm a senior here at Williston Northampton School. And for my language scholars class, I chose the language Japanese. And my project is called Manners and Etiquettes, a representation of the Japanese upbringing. So just to introduce myself, I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. My mother's from Japan, my father's from India, and I've studied in 3 different countries where I have experienced and learned 3 different cultural values they all have. So what am I doing? But first of all, what is your cultural value? As a Japanese person, I might have a different cultural value compared to all of you guys, but for me, it is respecting the elders and the importance of manners in everyday life. And my main goal for this project is to educate the younger audience about the Japanese manners and etiquette which we show in our society. Why this project? There's 2 reasons why. The first reason is to spread my understanding of my cultural value and its significance. And also I've written a children's book, and I feel like younger audiences and children tend to make a lot of mistakes, but they also learn from those mistakes. And I felt that by teaching about these values, which I would present in my story, it'll help them find a place in the society. And manners are something which are brought in later on in the future, and it's a very important part in your life. And talking about the research process, very being realistic and honest here, it was very stressful as initially, especially the first 2 weeks, as initially I was suggested to take this class from Mr. Simpson to do a scholars project on Spanish. However, I could not think of a solid idea which would be presentable in a scholars class instead of a Spanish class. So instead of dropping the class, as I really enjoy learning the language and also the concept of language, so I started thinking of the language I know, and I stumbled upon on Japanese. And you might be asking yourself, Vasu, aren't you Japanese? Aren't you a native speaker? Isn't it unfair for others? Isn't it gonna be easy for you? The easiest answer is both yes and no. As first of all, although I might be a fluent speaker in Japanese, I've stopped learning the language itself 6 to 7 years ago. So I've stopped learning how to write or read in Japanese. So it was a struggle at start. And so when I solidified the language which I was going to do, I started thinking of the topic which I would present in this class. And I started thinking about my personal experience just being born in Japan and being raised in Japan, and learning about the values we put in everyday life, and how Japanese people are known to respect others and care about the smaller things which we normal people don't see. And when I solidified both ideas, I started reading a lot of children's book, both in English and Japanese. First of all, in English, as a student, I didn't know how to write a children's book. So just by reading a children's book in English gave me an idea and the gist of how to write a book. And also read a lot of Japanese children's book, as with me not writing a literature project in Japanese for a while. So just reading these children's book has helped me, warm up my Japanese skills. And also I was assigned a mentor in the first month, where she really helped me a lot, solidifying my idea itself, polishing my book itself, and yeah. So my final product is called Oji-san no Oshie, the grandfather's teaching. So there's 2 main characters, the grandfather and the grandson, Ken. And it's basically a journey of Ken making mistakes and inquiring and learning from what the grandfather tells him what it was wrong, and understanding the cultural significance of a certain act. And the paper given to you is both in English and Japanese, and I'll be reading the first 2 scenes. おじいさんは朝から忙しく会議をしていました。日が暖かくなった時に車に乗ってケン君がおじいさんの家にお泊まりにしに来ました。ケン君が嬉しそうに走って家に入りました。靴を玄関に脱ぎ捨てておじいさんの部屋に行きました。おじいさんが会議をしている時に笑顔で可愛い孫に、元気にしているか？ケンが元気だよ。玄関で靴の置き方正しいか？あ、忘れちゃった。靴を脱ぐ理由は家の中に汚れを入れないようにするため、あと靴を玄関の方に直してから入りなさい。わかりました。今会議してるから横に座って聞いてる？聞いてたい。So this first scene is basically the grandson dashing through the entrance, throwing his shoes on the ground, as he was very excited to meet his grandfather. However, later noted that the shoe placement is a vital role in our Japanese culture. Its significance is to present cleanliness in our house and keeping dirt from the house. and he understand what he did was wrong and he fixed it. And this action of fixing it would create a habit for him in later on in the future whenever he goes and enters someone's house, that instantaneously that what he did in the grandfather's house was wrong. So whenever he enters a house, he'll fix the shoe properly and go inside the house. So the second scene. おじいさんと社員の人たちが次の計画のことを話していました。ケン君は静かに話を聞いています。社員とおじいさんが会話をしているときにケン君が気づいたことは、社員の話し方。社員が終わった後におじいさんにケン君が聞きました。なんで社員の人たちはおじいさんにきちんとした喋り方で話すの？じいちゃんは社員と喋ったら、比べると年上だし、日本の文化では年上の人には敬語で話さないと相手にすごい失礼。敬語で話すと相手が自分をすごく感謝して礼儀正しく話しているっていう行動が大事なの。おばあちゃん、敬語で喋る、また今度。So this second scene is where Ken is observing the conversation between the employees and the grandfather, and he notices the difference in the way the employees talk to his grandfather in contrast to him talking to his grandfather. And with inquiry and with interest, he asks the grandfather why they're speaking the way they are. And it's basically called keigo, an honorific, which if not spoken in keigo, for instance, to older people or anyone who's older than you, it's considered very rude to the other person. And when someone speaks in honorific, it's important that the other person is respecting you and speaking politely, as it is more of a formal way of speaking instead of me talking to, for example, Henry in a casual way. So similarly, in the third scene and the fourth scene, it's very similar but with different scenarios, but the same gist of teaching Ken about the importance of respecting the cultural values. And we're excited, and I really want to thank Lily Van Gogh for the illustrations. She took her free time to do these illustrations, so very thankful. And also thankful to all my classmates, Miss Kokoska and my mentor, for just helping me support and just, motivating me to not give up and do something else in a different class. But thank you very much, and arigatou gozaimasu.
So you said you grew up with several cultures during your upbringing. If you were to write similar stories with a similar context and setting as this one, how do you think they would compare to?
So with me having more of a background in India and Japan, I feel like both Japanese and Indian culture are very different in so many ways. I just do not want to be rude to my Indian culture itself, but it's the complete opposite. Most of them are very narrow-minded and very they don't take stuff seriously. So just if I was gonna write the same story base, I have to think more about my significance in my Indian culture. But yeah, both cultures are very opposite in a certain way. So that's why instead of writing a children's book in Hindi, I chose to choose it in Japanese, as I feel like Japanese people are known to be very polite and respectful. And so I wanted to share that message to younger audiences. So yeah.
You said that you want kids to read your work and kind of learn from it. So is there a way you want to share it? Like, how do you plan on exposing this?
So I feel like this is one of the examples where I've taught some of the main components of manners and etiquettes which are practiced in Japan and which I grew up with as a child growing up there. So if I had an opportunity to write another children's book, I might consider myself writing a book in Hindi too, which would be similar to this, and kind of teach about the cultural values we hold as an Indian person. So, if I had the opportunity to do it, I would do that. Yeah, Benny.
Since you haven't practiced or worked on writing Japanese since you went to school in Japan, did you find it a challenge to write this in Japanese?
So it was very challenging, as when I type in Japanese, it's only to my mother or my father in social media. So it was very hard just writing a story itself. As I think Lily did last time, I've written the story first in Japanese and then translated it to English so that my idea would be clear. And so I think, especially the first month, I had to do some Japanese drills prior just to warm up my Japanese kanji skills and everything like that. So yeah, it was very stressful in the first month. Yeah.
Mine was kind of similar to that, but In terms of like, if you had to take a guess, how many hours would you say this project overall took?
Hours. Maybe not hours, but in total, like a good couple of weeks. Like, especially with me not changing my language from Spanish to Japanese and thinking of a solid idea. For example, I'm writing a children's book too, so I need a good narrative so that my idea would be presented in the whole story, and the younger audience, whoever reads this, would understand the gist, which I want to say. So just thinking of the narrative was just another struggle. So although I might have not written the story itself, but just brainstorming the idea took a couple of days itself. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah.
Do some of these obstacles like relate to school too in Japan?
Yeah, so when I was in Japan, I was an international school compared to a normal Japanese student, so I was a bit kind of outcasted from the Japanese culture. But from what I know, in a normal Japanese public school, whenever you finish a class, you stand up and bow, which is like an action of thanking the teacher. And also whenever you get out of the chair and the table, you push in the chair. And those smaller things are very practiced from a younger age, so yeah. And yeah, thank you very much.